A flat rectangle of asphalt sits in a mid-sized downtown, maybe 40 spaces. No roof, no staff, one faded sign. Somebody walks past it every day and sees nothing worth a second look. A meter clicks over. A car pulls in, a phone taps a screen, $4 moves, then another car, and another. By the end of the month, that plain lot has quietly collected more than the person walking past earns at a job. And it did that without a single employee clocking in. This is not a stock tip. This is a parking lot, and today you will see why the most boring square of ground in your city might be the closest thing to a cash machine hiding in plain sight. So here's the question that should bother you. Why does almost nobody think about the ground their car sits on when the numbers are sitting right there in the open? The US parking management market was worth about $5.2 billion in 2024, and Grandview Research expects it to more than double toward $15 billion by 2030. That is not a fringe hobby. That is a serious industry built on the least glamorous asset you can imagine. And the cost of not knowing this is simple. You keep waiting for the exciting investment, the one that doubles in a month, and while you wait, quieter people collect rent on concrete. They are not smarter than you. They just looked at the boring thing long enough to see the money in it. Most people never do, because boring does not trend, boring does not get shared, and boring does not make you feel clever at a dinner party. That is exactly why it stays available. Here is my promise to you. By the end of this, you will understand parking lots the way a quiet investor does, and then we widen out, because parking is only one member of a strange little family of assets that all work the same way. Storage, laundromats, vending. Stay to the end because the last idea is the one that ties every other one together, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it in any business again. Start by looking at what a parking space actually is. It is a painted rectangle on flat ground, and building one on a surface lot costs somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 by industry estimates. Compare that to almost any other piece of real estate you could buy. There is no lobby to heat, no plumbing to burst, no tenant calling you at midnight about a broken dishwasher. The asset is basically dirt with paint on it. And yet that painted rectangle can charge. In many downtowns, a space rents to a monthly parker for a few $100s, and the hourly rate on a busy block can run $10 an hour or $40 for a full day. Now weigh the overhead against that. Running a single space costs the operator very little each month. One industry breakdown put it near $80, $3 a month in a suburb, around $180 in a dense urban area, and higher only in a packed central business district. So on the cheap end, you have a rectangle that costs under $100 a month to keep and can collect several hundred. That gap, the spread between what dirt costs and what dirt earns, is the whole game. It is not one thing. It is the same small gap repeated across every stall in the lot, every day, forever. Let's be honest about why this feels wrong. We are trained to believe that returns should be exciting, that real money requires risk, screens, and adrenaline. A parking lot offers none of that. It offers a sleepy little margin per car, and the trick is that the margin never sleeps. A 40-space lot charging modest daily rates does not need to go viral. It just needs the sun to come up and people to need somewhere to leave the car while they live their lives. Think about that for a second. The product is doing nothing. Literally nothing. The car sits there. You are being paid for space and time, the two things a city never makes more of. Compare it to running a normal shop for a moment. A store has to guess what to stock, buy the inventory up front, watch some of it spoil or go out of style, hire people to sell it, and pray customers show up in the right mood. A parking space carries none of that weight. There is nothing to buy, nothing to spoil, nothing to sell. The customer arrives already knowing they need the thing, and the thing is simply room. You are not competing on taste or trend. You are renting the one resource a busy place can never manufacture more of, which is a spot to put a car. There is a viral version of this idea worth naming, because it shows both the promise and the trap. A former Wall Street investor who posts as Kenny Finance went semi-viral, claiming a single well-placed lot can throw off around $100,000 a month once you stack hourly parking, monthly contracts, EV charging, even solar and telecom leases on the same ground. Is that number real for a trophy lot in a dense city? Sure, at the very top end. Is it typical for the sleepy suburban lot near you? Not even close. Here's what almost nobody tells you. The magic is not the headline figure. The magic is the structure underneath it. The fact that one piece of ground can be sold many times a day and rented many ways at once. And it really is many ways. The same rectangle that sells hourly parking by day can hold a monthly contract for a nearby resident, host a farmer's market on a Sunday, carry an EV charger on one corner, and rent its light poles to a telecom. One piece of ground, several rent checks, none of them aware of the others. Most assets give you a single stream. A well-run lot can braid together 4 or 5, which is why the good operators treat a parking space less like dirt and more like inventory that resets itself every single morning. Now walk out to the edge of the lot and look down, because this is where the boring asset gets sneaky. When you buy a parking lot in a growing downtown, you are not really buying the asphalt. You are buying the land, and the parking is just the thing. That pays the bills, while the land does the quiet work of getting more valuable. Investors have a plain name for this. They call it land banking. You hold a patch of dirt in a place that is filling in around you. You let cars cover your costs, and you wait for the day. The numbers say, build something taller. That waiting is not dead time, it is paid waiting, which is the rarest kind. Most people who bet on land pay to hold it, taxes and interest bleeding out every month while they hope. A parking lot flips that. The tenants, meaning the drivers, cover the carrying costs and often more. So you get the appreciation of raw urban land, with someone else feeding the meter to fund your patience. That is a very different feeling from watching an empty field cost you money. And the land option has a second, sharper edge. Because a surface lot is cheap to run and easy to clear, it is the most flexible thing a developer can own. The asphalt is not a building you have to demolish at great cost. It is a placeholder. The day the block is finally worth an apartment tower or an office, you scrape the paint, pour a foundation, and the parking was simply the rent you collected during the wait. There is even a quirk in how many places tax property where improving a building can raise your bill while sitting on a bare lot stays cheap, which quietly rewards the person willing to do nothing but hold. Doing nothing profitably is an underrated skill. Here's a fact that reframes the whole thing. America has roughly 4 parking spaces for every single car, and our cars sit parked about 95% of the time. Whole cities are paved for machines that mostly do not move. One analysis figured the country has set aside land for parking on the order of an entire state. In Los Angeles alone, the ground under parking could hold something like 900,000 homes. Think about that for a second. The boring asset is not niche. It is one of the largest quiet land positions in the entire country, hiding behind the least interesting surface imaginable. So how do the pros price these things? They use a cap rate, which is just the yearly income divided by the price, a plain way of asking how fast the asset pays you back. Parking generally trades somewhere between a 5 and 10% cap rate, according to operators like Air Garage, with urban garages often in the 5 to 9 range and small surface lots a bit higher. For comparison, stabilized retail tends to sit around 7 to 8, and office lately around 6 to 7. So parking is not some throwaway. It prices in the same neighborhood as respectable real estate while asking far less of you as an owner. The catch, and there is always a catch, is that parking income can move faster than a normal lease. A shopping center might lock a tenant in for 10 years. A lot reprices by the hour and the month, which cuts both ways. When a district booms, your lot rides it up quickly. When an office tower empties out, your monthly parkers can vanish before the ink dries. That volatility is exactly why cap rates on parking spread wider than on a boring apartment building. You are paid a little extra to accept that the cash flow breathes. Let's be honest. This is where the small investor gets scared off, and that fear is the moat. The wealthy families and the funds that quietly own the good lots are not afraid of a little breathing in the numbers because they are not betting on the parking. They are betting on the ground, and the parking is just the polite tenant paying them to hold it. Once you understand that the tenant does not have to be a car, a whole family of boring machines swings open in front of you. Here is the part the wealthy understand and rarely advertise. When you already have money, your first goal is not to double it fast. It is to keep it, earning quietly without eating your attention. These boring machines are perfect for that. They throw off cash you can actually spend or redeploy. They do not demand you watch a screen all day, and they survive rough years because people still park, still store their junk, still wash their clothes, and still get hungry in a hallway. Steady beats spectacular when the money is already yours to lose. Because parking is only one animal in a small zoo of assets that all share one gene. They collect tiny payments over and over from people doing something ordinary, and they do it with almost nobody watching. Once you can see it in a parking lot, you start seeing it everywhere. Start with self-storage, the parking lot's older cousin. You rent a metal box to someone for their extra stuff, and they forget they are even paying you. In the United States, there are more than 52,000 storage facilities, and the industry pulled in around $58 billion in revenue in a recent year by data compiled by Neighbor. Occupancy runs high, more than 90% nationally, and better than 1 in 9 American households is renting a unit right now. Think about what that means. Tens of millions of people are paying monthly rent on a windowless box, and most could not tell you the last time they opened it. That is not a bug. From the owner's chair, that forgetfulness is the business model. Next, the laundromat, the machine that made 1,000 quiet fortunes. It is a room full of steel boxes that eat quarters while the owner is somewhere else entirely. The U.S. laundromat industry runs on the order of $7 billion a year, across roughly 17,000 businesses by the IBIS World Count. No inventory to spoil, no product to restock beyond soap, and customers who come back every single week, because clean clothes are not a passing trend. A laundromat is boring in the specific way a bond is boring. It just pays and pays and pays. There is a reason so many first-generation families used them as the ladder. The machine does not care who owns it. Then vending, maybe the purest version of the whole idea. A vending machine is a tiny store that never sleeps, never takes a break, and never asks for a raise. The U.S. retail vending market was worth about $15 billion in 2024 by Grand View Research's estimate, and it is expected to keep climbing toward $20 billion over the next decade. One box, on one wall, in one hallway, selling the same snack 1,000 times. Stack a route of them across a city, and you have built a business out of hunger and small change. It is not glamorous. It was never supposed to be. Notice the pattern forming across all three. Storage, laundry, vending, low staff, low drama, small price, high repetition. Nobody brags about owning them, which is precisely why the people who do tend to keep quiet and keep buying. The glamour tax is real. You pay extra in a lower return for assets that make you sound impressive. You get paid extra in a higher and steadier return for assets that make you sound boring at a party. Now back to parking, because at the industrial end, this boring family produces very real giants. In 2024, a technology company called Metropolis completed a $1.5 billion takeover of SP Plus, and overnight became the largest parking network in North America. It now runs more than 4,000 locations with over 20,000 employees, processing north of $4 billion a year. Let that land. Somebody built a multi-billion-dollar company out of the space next to the curb. Names like LAZ Parking out of Hartford grew into national operators doing the same thing, one boring lot at a time. Here's what almost nobody tells you. The biggest fortunes in these categories were never one brilliant bet. They were the same small transaction, copied until the copying became an empire. You might be wondering where a normal person even fits into this. You are not buying 4,000 lots tomorrow. But the door is lower than it looks. People start with a single small lot in a growing town, or a few storage units, or one modest vending route bought with a loan the machines themselves pay off. The scale is different. The gene is identical. Every giant in these categories started as somebody staring at one boring asset and deciding it was enough to begin. That copying is the whole secret, which is exactly where we are headed. Now let me be honest about the risks, Because a boring asset is not a magic one. Parking has a real enemy, and its name is change. If a downtown office district empties out, the monthly parkers who paid your bills can disappear faster than any long lease would allow. Remote work already thinned out weekday demand in some city cores, and a lot leaning on. 9 to 5 commuters felt it right away. Self-storage can overbuild, and when too many facilities go up in one metro, that 90% occupancy slips and the rent war begins. Laundromats live and die by their neighborhood and their machines, and a broken boiler on a cold week is a very unromantic bill. Vending gets squeezed by rising snack costs and a machine that jams while you are asleep. The point is not that these assets are safe. The point is that their risks are ordinary and legible. You can walk the lot, count the cars, read the district. That is a far kinder kind of risk than a company whose fate is decided, in a room you will never enter. Boring does not mean bulletproof. It means you can actually see what might hurt you. So here's the last idea, the one I promised would tie the rest together. Go back to that first plain lot and ask what it truly is. It is not the asphalt. The asphalt cracks and gets repaved. It is not even the land. Not really. What that lot actually is a small machine that turns time into money in tiny, repeated amounts and hands you the cash to decide what happens next. And that, not parking, is the real asset. The genius was never the lot. The genius is what you do with the first dollar it produces. Because the quiet builders do the same thing every time. They take the small stream from the boring asset, and instead of spending it to feel rich, they feed it into the next boring asset. Parking cash buys a few storage units. Storage cash buys a vending route. Vending cash buys a second lot. Each one is unimpressive alone. Stacked and compounded and left mostly alone for years, they become the thing everyone else was trying to grab in one exciting swing. Here's the line I want you to keep. Wealth is not one loud win. It is 100 quiet payments pointed at each other, left to breathe. Think about that for a second. Every asset in this video, the lot, the box, the machine, the meter, is just a different mouth on the same simple idea. Small amounts collected relentlessly, redeployed on purpose. The people who understand that do not need the exciting investment because they already own the boring one that funds all the others. It's not one thing. It never was. It is the stacking. Picture two people who both start with a little money and a little time. One of them chases the loud win, jumping from hot stock to hot coin to whatever is trending this month, always one big swing from finally arriving. The other buys a single, tired parking lot on the edge of a growing town, lets the cars pay her back, and quietly rolls each year's cash into one more small, dull thing. For a long while, the first one looks smarter and sounds richer at dinner. Then the years do their patient work. A decade on, the loud one is still one big swing away, still waiting for the exciting investment to save the day. The quiet one is not waiting for anything. She stands at the edge of that same plain lot, watching a car pull in, a phone tap a screen, $4 move. And she is smiling, because the boring square of ground pays every bill she has. Share this with the one still waiting for the exciting win, then like, subscribe, and go find your own boring square.